Thank you, Team Zinnov, and thank you for giving this opportunity to present to the wider audience what we believe is dramatically changing the way we are working. But as I talk of the future workspace, I'm reminded of a situation where uh, we're talking about what the technology driven workspace of the future would look like while we are fighting a pandemic which first appeared on the horizon in 1347. That's about 700 years ago, again from South China, decimating Europe. So it's funny and ironic in a sense that here we are talking about what technology can do for us as we go into the future while fighting a pandemic which has existed in our human history for about the last 700 years. But that's interesting. So what I would like to do is just share with you, with the people on the webinar, the way we are seeing the world evolve in this particular space. I think it's beyond anybody's argument that the decade of 2021 would be commoditization of these technologies. This is beyond any discussion. This cannot be, there's nothing to debate here. This is done. All that is happening is it's getting commoditized. And what would it look like? It would look like always connected, always on, highly data intensive, correlating all that data with underlying computational power, which would be very cheap and therefore very pervasive, automation of different kinds that will happen. But the key word out here is personalized. I personally believe, and I believed it for a very long time, that commoditization leads to specialization. A large number of people believe that when a commodity gets or a technology gets commoditized, there's nothing more to it. I've always thought and I have believed that whenever technology gets commoditized, it leads to specialization. And in this case, when you are going to look at technology consumption getting commoditized in human life, in every sphere of human life, the most important part would be personalization. What we call as user experience today is one aspect of it. It's like moving from UI to user experience. But personalization is far more intense. It relates to what I want. It helps me, it creates an aura around my experience of what I want to do. So we are entering that phase. And everything would be smart, but the definition of smart needs to change. And smart would not be the way that we are looking at smart, which means providing some apps on a few devices and allowing people to access those devices. Now, we spend about 10 to 12 hours and perhaps more in our workplace. It's a place where we spend a lot more time and in conditions which are very severe, stressful. It's life dependent. We earn our money there. We earn a livelihood. We have our personal goals, professional goals when we go to the office, and it's never been considered from that perspective. Never, ever. And what does smartness today mean in a workplace? Oh, make some utilities or make some meeting rooms or security or walk-in or meeting rooms being fixed, conference rooms being fixed, ordering some food, etc., make them available through mobile app, and that's what becomes a smart workplace. No, that's not really what it is. We have to first understand that the future workspace should understand and keep in mind that this is a place where we spend 10 to 12 hours in different degrees of stress. Our livelihood depends here. We have an emotional aspect to when we are there in the workspace. There's a lot more to us when we are in that workspace. And how does the workspace look today? Nothing like the way I'm talking of. Nothing. You have somebody at the reception trying to automate. You have the utilities guys, maintenance guys trying to automate. You have a security guy who's trying to automate. You have meeting room bookings linked to your email systems. You have mobile notifications, and now you have this new thing called work from home, and then security and video surveillance. But where is the experience? What do we know about the workplace? I think this is what was going on in our minds about 4 years back when we undertook this journey. And we said, if there is a workplace of the future where you have to bring down the stress levels, where you have to induce people to come to office with a mood, with a very positive optimism, what should it look like? The first thing that came to our mind was that how many people use a building? Not the employees. Employees are not the only one. If you just look around, you'll realize that in a typical corporate office, there are something like 65 to 70 different type of profiles of people using that building in a day. We never thought of that. Now here we are, we're talking smart world, we're talking smartness, we do everything, but there it is. In the building that we have, there are 65 to 70 different profiles of people who come and use and interact with that campus, that workplace campus. Now, let's keep that in mind as we go forward. We believe, and we've believed it for the last 3 to 4 years, that the future workplace has to be designed keeping in mind what is the experience each of the 65 profiles would like to have or we would like to give them when they interact with it. It could be from the security person, from the employee, from the physically challenged person, from the person supplying food, from the courier guy, from the employee who comes and sits in the reception waiting for an interview. It comes for people who are having a joining onboarding process. It could be a vendor, it could be a supplier, it could be a courier boy. It's 65 to 70 different profiles of people. That is what will define how the future workplace would look like. You have to keep these 65 to 70 profiles, and it could be more or it could be less. You have to keep them in the center of your design process and then say, these are the type of facilities that I will provide them. This is the type of storyboarding. This is the type of experience we would like to provide them. And then look at how all of that get connected. Right now, it's a bottoms-up approach, right? You build a building, it ought to have all those smart stuff that you would want to do. You have building systems, and they'll be all smart, and you're controlling utilities, you're controlling power, you're controlling lifts, etc., and you're building it up. And what you miss out is the user experience that these people would like to have. And when you start looking at it from a user experience perspective, you'll realize that there's a lot more to it. You can integrate many functions. You can personalize many functions. You can optimize many things. So the future workplace, if it has to talk of productivity, if it has to talk of better integration from remote locations or work from home to the actual host location where you're working, all of these things have to come together, keeping in mind the user of the building, the persona of the user in the building, and then building the architecture of the workplace. That's how we will get productivity. That's how we will get experience. And that's what we believe is going to lead the way. Now, while we were at it, we realized from a technology perspective, what does it mean? It means fascinating things. It means a building of this nature, which now in the parlance of the builders and real estate builders or the real estate operations in campuses or our corporates, for them, it means a building which has to give the type of user experience that we would like to have for all these stakeholders would have to be highly sensorized. It could be a sensorized building which could have 6,000 to 12,000 sensors. And those sensors have to be designed into the core and shell of the building, which means you start architecting the building at a stage and you start ideating as to what the building of the future will look like. Now remember, this is my view, garbage in, garbage out. Nothing matters. I think software is a commodity. It's highly overrated. The two ends of the spectrum are the data that comes in and the way that you present the data to the end consumer. The data comes in through sensors. And what you present to the customer is a personalized experience which will have the elements of interconnection of all these different points, analyzing them, applying AI, predictive, prescriptive, whatever we want to, and then present it to him in a manner, on a mode, at a time that he wants. So there are only two ends. information in, information being presented. So what's very important here is that the future buildings will be highly sensorized. We're talking to people where they are sensorizing the materials so that the materials that go in the building of these campuses would help manage energy, help manage clean air. So all of that, the smart campus or the smart experience-based campus, which will lead to high productivity, highly conducive workspace, would have all these elements of technologies which were not present in the past or which were very expensive, and they're now coming to shape as we talk. Now, perhaps many of my friends on the webinar may feel that all that I'm trying to give you is something state of the PPTs. Not really. We've implemented it and we have learned. We've implemented in around 9 to 10 smartest buildings in the world. We still call it smart building for the terminology, but wherever we have gone and interacted with the customers, we have always kept experience in the building. And we have now realized how everything gets connected. Right from the time a person comes out of his home to the time he enters, gets into the car park, gets into the reception, gets to his office, wants to use anything, wants to manage visitors, wants to manage vendors, wants to manage people who are coming for interviews. And it's not easy. For example, let me give you an example of why it's technologically very challenging. One is, of course, the sensors, 6,000 to 12,000 sensors, that very different, all type of protocols, Zigbee, Wi-Fi, you name it. They're there, air sensors, people counting sensors, occupancy sensors. Very interesting use case is that of car parking. What happens to a car parking solution when implemented in severe weather conditions in the outdoors? And how does a camera recognize whether the car has come in, the number plate recognition, facial recognition when it's raining or when it's snowing? So there are these huge complex issues that are getting solved by the implementations that we are doing. And the more we do, the more we realize that it is a fascinating place. This is the future. If I'm going to spend 10 hours in a building, I would like that building to react to me and not me reacting to the building. That's personalization. And the way I will relate to the building is that if the building understands the type of information that I want, understands what is it that I need, I don't want everything. One of my favorite, point of view is that when I started, there was no net. And the customers still liked me because I would take photocopies of different manuals and give it to them. And they would like me because I was getting them information which was not available. So I was relevant. Today, I'm again relevant because there's so much information that I don't want all information. I want what information is required for me. That's personalization in a form factor that I require. So if we are looking at future workplace, the hope that we have, given the type of implementations we are doing across the globe, and people call it trophy building right now, but that's how smartphones started, right? Only a certain brand gave user experience, and now user experience is available in every phone that we talk of. So we believe that smart workplace will be the way a lot of investments will happen. The smart workplaces will no longer be defined by just saying that I'm making some applications, utilities available through a mobile app. It will keep my persona in the center. I could be anybody. I could be a vendor. I could be a data center operator. I could be a secretary. I could be a job. As I said, 65 to 70 different profile of people. And when I enter into the campus, my whole experience will be so smooth. Information will be available. I don't have to go through the paperwork. There will be a positivity. There will be less bureaucracy when you're trying to interact with various stakeholders in a building maintenance. And this is where investments are going to happen. And while investments are happening here, this is one place where you will have some extreme technologies being tested all the time. You can imagine 10,000 sensors generating data all the time. You can imagine that you will have to connect security to different type of use cases. You can imagine that your elevators and your food and your lighting, your occupancy will all be connected to the type of people and the number of people who are there, and thereby saving energy. All of those linkages is what is going to be possible, is already possible as we talk. It's just a question of it getting adopted in a mass scale. So we believe this is how it's going to be. Very, very optimistic about it, because not only does it give us good customers, but it also gives us very challenging technology problems to solve. So all in all, this decade would see an emergence of buildings and workplaces of a very different kind, buildings to which we could relate, buildings and workplaces where we would find it far more easier to work, operate, and manage the 10 hours or 12 hours of time that we spend in a day. That's really all from my side, and look forward to, I hope you guys found it interesting enough. And as I said, all that I talked of is an experience of about 3 to 4 years. We believe with the type of implementations that we have done. I see it from a technology perspective. I'm not seeing it from a revenue perspective. It's very exciting. It's absolutely exciting. How do you create a ceiling? How do you create a digital ceiling in a building today, keeping in mind that sensors and equipment will change 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line? You can't keep breaking it up and putting new sensors all the time. You have to have something very different. So there's a lot of innovation, a lot of thought that is going into it, and it's exciting. And I hope all of us, when we go back to home to work in 3 years or 4 years from now, we find these type of workplaces intelligent, computing pervasive all the time, information available as and when I want. Thank you very much. That's all really from my side, and look forward to interacting with you people over the course of the day or the next days. Thank you.